Appreciate you thinking up with us today. We've got some more great information from the good folks over at the Military and Family Readiness Center in regards to federal employment opportunities. And I think this is part two of the series, and we're going to have Mr. Parchman cover down on some specifics associated with interviewing.
All righty then. All right. So I'm Stephen Parchman. I work here at the Military and Family Readiness Center. I work employment and Air Force aid and personal financial readiness is another area that I work in. But was in the military for 21 years and retired in 2016. So I know I can understand. I've been in the government for a while, but I can also understand the rigors of transitioning from active duty over to the civilian side, and especially when you're seeking a federal employment. Before, I used to think that it was unattainable because of the whole process, and your resume need to be a certain way, and it need to include certain things in it. And if you're not reading the job announcement and understanding what's in the job announcement, what they're trying to the message they're trying to relay to those who are seeking to apply, can be, it can end up being lost. What needs to happen in regards to the interview process, because everything is it's like baking a cake. You got your job announcement, you got your resume, you got your experience, things that you've done in the past, but you're also going to have to go through that interview process and prior to that application process. So everything should be interwoven. Everything should be matching up. It's kind of like if you gave me 5 different pictures of something, that all of them going to include some of the same information, and it just may be at different angles or whatever the case may be. But being able to talk that piece. And so we're going to look at I'm going to pull up a job announcement. I'm also going to talk to you all from the area of looking up the AFIs or whatever regulation governs that particular job or field. You definitely want to know that, because that way it gives you an idea as to how to write your resume. And then especially once you get into the interview, being able to speak in the interview from that perspective of what that regulation is saying, what that instruction is saying, and so forth. Because what folks tend to do, or what they can do, is they just go in and speak from the perspective of what they've done, which is fine. But if you really want to be the person that shine in that interview, you want to speak from the perspective of what was governing that regulation. Because the thing about it is, you could have already been doing exactly what's in the regulation, but when you speak their language and you talk the talk that they're looking for, then it can make all the difference in the world. All right, so for this one right here, for example, so before you start, when you find a job that you may want to apply for, and we're going to get through the whole interview, but I just got to bring yesterday to today to let you all see something here in a minute. Let me see. Go back to share again. Desktop. Tab. So if I come here, let me see this job announcement. Sure. All right, so with this job announcement right here, this is a GS-14 job announcement. Also, I would keep in mind, this one is Office of Personnel Management. I think I pulled up another one that wasn't Office of, it was like Air Force. It had something to do with Air Force and Air Force organization. But one of the things when it comes to this job right here, say for example, it talk about, let me see, actionable milestones, qualitative, quantitative improvements, milestones, timeliness, cost, and scope in associated interagency agreement. So one of the things about this, if it's talking about financial, whatever information is in there that's financial, then you definitely want to go and look at a AFI or regulation that governs that document. So that governs that job announcement. So if we go back again and we look at that AFI, and that AFI will give us some information, especially I think I saw something on page 4. But anyway,
Hey, Mr. Parchman, I don't know if it's just me, but I think we lost your sound. We lost your audio.
No, I can't hear him either.
Oh, okay. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, now.
All right, so I'll start over. All right, so we looked at that job. I brought up that job announcement the last job announcement, but if that, let's see if I'm still, yep, still there. Okay, so with that job announcement, if it's talking about financial and budgeting and all that, you may want to go and look up what AFI regulation governs that job. And the reason why this is important, because once you start to read this information and what it's talking about, it gives you an idea of how to write your resume, but it's also going to give you an idea of what the direction and which you need to go when it comes to the interview. All right, so I think I was looking, but it gives you an overview. Financial management is the process of determining fund requirements, obtaining resources, and applying those resources legally. So when you go and you look at this information right here, if this is what the job announcement is talking about, then these are kind of the things that you may want to focus on in regards to, one, the job announcement, looking at the job announcement, but also in writing a resume. And all of this is going to come full frontal in the interview, because what happens a lot of times is people, they come in and they may just shoot from the hip, or they may talk around the whole subject of what the question, they're being asked a question, but they talk around the whole question. But these, the regulations will help you to target exactly what they're talking about when it comes to interviewing process. And we'll see that here in a little bit later. And then I like this one right here where it talked about a bona fide need is legitimate mission requirement arising in, or in some cases arising prior to continuing to exist in. So because something pertaining to this right here in this paragraph could come up in the interview. It could be a question that's, how do you determine legitimate mission requirements? That could be a question that may be asked in the interview. Now, you can come up with your own answer, and that may be a good answer, or it may not be a good answer, or we can come up with our own answers. It may be a good answer, or it may not be a good answer. But what you want to do is you want to be able to speak, again, from this information that's within that instruction or within that regulation. With this agenda, we're going to talk about interview formats, interview coverage, delivery methods, types of questions, interview scheduling and preparation, and during the interview and other considerations. So these are some of the agendas. Next slide, please. If you can scroll down or next page. All right, and so these are the different types of interview formats. I have been in both, interviewed in both of these situations. So last year, I think I was telling the last group in part one that last year I interviewed. I applied for 13 jobs and I was offered firm offers for 11 out of 13 of those jobs. And the two that I did not get, one involved contracting, which I've never done before. That was one of the main tenets. They had like 5 different areas that they wanted to focus on with that job. I never did contracting. They also offered you to go to school to become contracting qualified or certified or whatever it was the case may be. But they also wanted a PhD, preferred PhD, even though it said bachelor's degree required. So that was one of the jobs I did that I didn't get. And then there was another job with sort of the same requirements where they wanted PhD, but I do have a master's degree. But those were the 2 jobs that I did not get, and I can understand why they would need somebody, with that specific type of background, because there's a lot of money and the high turnover with rolling out projects and all that. But what I'm getting at is I did go through these processes. So when I speak to you all, I'm not speaking to you all from just slides or PDF slides or something like that. I am speaking to you all from based on experience is what I'm doing. So if we look at the structure interview, we'll see on that left side that candidates are asked the same questions. All candidates are given the same amount of time to respond, and notes are scored. All right, and I have been through that scoring process, and while you're talking, they will be writing down, you'll see them writing down stuff within that interview. It could end up being a panel. This might be a panel interview. So for every question that's asked, depending on how you answer that question, say, for example, if they ask you a question, tell me what you know about the organization, and then as you start to speak and you start given the right answers, they're going to write a little, they may write a little one down, cross it once you get 5 or something like that. And so I have been in those interviews, and they do this. And this is why it's important to make sure that again, that you can speak from that regulation or that instruction and so on and so forth. And even if it's Department of Homeland Security or another agency within the federal government, I would go and look up whatever. Sometimes they have the links in the job announcement, and so you're able to go and pull up the regulations, or it may say in accordance with whatever regulation, and you may want to go look at those, because when it comes to the interviewing process, you never know who you're going to be up against. You never know. The last job I just got promoted, I interviewed for here to move from GS9 to GS11, and I end up getting a job the first time go. It's been folks here who 4 or 5 times before they actually got their GS11. But by me going through that whole process, I understood what needed to happen throughout the process of in order to gain employment within this field, or to get a promotion. So again, I do speak from experience, and thankfully I went through that whole process last year, because I was able to go into this interview very confident in knowing what I was going to talk about, because I had a lot of rehearsals and a lot of experience. So hiring manager interview, typically all candidates are asked the same questions. Typically, all candidates are given the same amount of time to respond, and notes are not scored. So this one, I did have an interview with someone in Alaska, and she told me the interview going to last about an hour. And guess what? That interview, it lasted an hour on the dot. I'm like, we can't have that much to talk about. But yes, we did. And before she even started, she said, she said, before we start, I've got some ground rules for you. And she said, I want you to answer the questions fully. I want you to answer the questions like this. She didn't tell me she want me to answer the questions a certain type of way, but what she is saying is that I don't want you to leave out any details when I ask you the questions. Is what she was telling me. Because even though she wasn't taking any scores or anything, she was taking a lot of notes, because the notes that what I'm telling her, she wanted to make sure that it matched up with the job announcement. All right, so next slide, please. If y'all have any questions, just stop me, just jump right in. You can stop me. You're not going to hurt my feelings or anything, and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Next slide, please. Hello? Is she out there? Sunglass?
I switched interview coverage, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see it switch. Interview coverage. Okay, there you go. All right, so it just moved for me. Sorry about that. All right, so interview coverage prior to the job interview. Again, this is one of the things you want to do. Some of the things you want to look at: the responsibilities, qualifications, KSAs, and competencies, and occupational questionnaire. These are very important. You want to look over and this is why I say having the regulation, having a job announcement, that questionnaire, because that's another big ticket item when it comes to interviewing, because that questionnaire, believe it or not, is going to drive a lot of your interview, because that's the meat and potatoes as to what they're really looking for. So I mean, all of it has what they're looking for, but that occupational questionnaire is like, hey, if we can't ask them nothing else about this, we definitely want to know what level of expertise they have within these parameters. So we definitely want to look over those. Again, they typically, I think every interview that I was on, they had their resume right there in front of them, and that resume as well was driving the whole interview process. So any bullet or any paragraph, however you write your resume out, you definitely want to be able to go into detail about any of that information when asked, or you may not even be directly asked. You might be indirectly asked a question about something, especially if they tell me about a time you had a project and if it was completed successfully or not, and then there may be something in your resume that you wrote that you could pull from, and go into detail about. Now, the downside is if you do bring up something that's not on your resume, it should be something that's going to be really good. That's going to be just like, knocking the socks off the interviewers, so to speak, because typically what they're looking at is what's in your resume, meted up against the responsibilities, qualifications, KSAs, and so forth. So you definitely want to make sure that you have that information. And down at the bottom, it talks about keep copies of all the job announcements that you sent. So interview coverage, those areas. So ideally, structured interviews focus on a small number of 4 to 6 competencies. And so if you look in the job announcements, there may be an area where it says competencies. You definitely want to look at those areas. I think they're going to give us some more, we're going to see some more examples here in a little bit, but you definitely want to be able to speak from those, and everything should just be flowing freely, just flowing freely. Because one thing I did learn is that you will or you should conduct rehearsals before you, conduct rehearsals with yourself or with somebody else. Or we do mock interviews here. If you want to schedule a mock interview with us, and we can write down some, some items, give you some feedback regarding your interviewing skills. So yeah. So you do want to look at those competencies, and then you do want to be able to speak to them, and you want to be able to speak freely to them. I will say this as well, is that if they look at your interview and they make it to the hiring manager, if your resume makes it to the hiring manager and they want to schedule for an interview, there's something on your resume or some type of experience that you have that they really want, or they got this broad selection of folks, but they want to bring you in to see, how, what kind of person is this, like their personality, especially for us in the social science field. Do they talk? Are they rigid? Are they frozen? Are they kind of cold? Are they too overjoyous and stuff? And one of the things I did learn real quickly within this whole interview process is that when you have a panel interview, you may have different types. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with 4 lenses or not, but you may have a gold person that's going to ask you questions. You may have a green, you may have a blue, and thankfully, because I do facilitate 4 lenses, I was able to catch on to not everybody all the time, but I could definitely catch on to those who was green and those who were blue. The golds was kind of hard to, and also the orange, because the orange, typically they might be just, but anyway, but I was able to catch on to that. And the reason why I say this is because some of them wanted to, say, for example, if it was a blue person, and I'm not telling y'all to go by this, I'm just giving y'all a perspective. But if it's a blue person, they typically was smiling and they got this little bubbly, peachy little question that they want to ask. And then when you give a response, they are looking for more talking, more information, more emotional, more feeling or connectedness to that, whatever answer you're giving to that question. So that may be something to look at. I know some of the green folks, and if you're green, I'm not throwing punches at anybody, but they were just like straight to the point. Like, I just want you to answer this question and give me your best answer and get on to the next question. So in some cases, you can, but it's a panel. They're going to discuss whatever at the end, but it's something that I would definitely take into consideration when look at their personality types as well. Not just yours. Even though I got hired on some of those jobs, some of them I was like, after being interviewed by some of the people, I was like, I probably don't want to work there with some of those folks. I'm not saying nothing bad about them. I'm just saying that that was my perspective on that, because it's not just them looking at you, but you looking at them as well. All right, so highly specialized jobs or jobs at a high level, managerial, executive level, will probably cover more. So they may go into more detail about leadership and manage teams, projects, project management, big picture, multi-million-dollar, information or experience or what you've done with that. So something to keep in mind is the level, because GS7 position compared to a GS13 or 14 or 15 or 12, that may be something completely different, and they may want to cover different levels of within that realm. Now, we do federal resume classes here on the regular, and we do go into more details about that within our federal resume class that we have here at the MFRC. Next page, please. All right, so there it is. Some of the general competencies. I was saying I was gonna give you a few examples. So especially when it comes to teamwork, oral communication, interpersonal skills, and problem solving. And I will say this: oral communication throughout the whole time is being monitored, no matter what you put on that resume. And like I was saying, the information being able to flow freely. They will be listening intently to the teamwork, especially especially if they've got issues with teamwork within their organizations already. And those interpersonal skills, because they did ask me a question. Every interview asked me a question involving other people. Like if one of your team members come to you and they're having a bad day, what did you do, or how did you help them in that situation, or something like that, And so they will ask you questions based on that. as well as some other problem solving. And that problem solving can be a gambit of any elements, as far as the job is concerned, as far as people concerned, as far as deadlines, negative customer feedback. I mean, it just depends on what they're looking for. So I would definitely keep those in mind. And this all comes down to just knowing your resume, knowing your experience, and again, knowing those AFIs and regulations, instructions and regulations or policies that govern that particular field, and also that job announcement. Next slide, please. And if I'm talking too fast, please let me know. I can slow down. All right, so yep, there it is. So examples of general and yep, leadership. So when it comes to leadership, these are definitely areas that you want to make sure that you expound on or include in your resume. Lead and change, team building, strategic thinking, decision making, and definitely influencing and negotiating. So these are definitely areas that you want to include. So when in some cases, it may not have all of these, but you probably want to utilize these. And these also bring are great talking points and great areas to build up that resume. So I would definitely keep those in mind for that as well. Next slide, please. All right, IT, examples of IT companies for information technology specialists. We'll see those. And again, these are just competencies and areas that you want to focus on. I know in the last class we did resume, we looked at some resume writing, I gave y'all the handout. And so in this case, this competency, it will be in bold, all caps, network performance / monitoring, and then you're gonna go into detail on a paragraph format on your resume, put that information in there. But again, you should be able to speak to this, speak to that in the interview based on what you put into that, into your resume. All right, next slide. And yep, again, in person, you can do it in person, over the phone. One of the interviews I had in Alaska was over the phone. Definitely want to be clear, concise. If you do have that phone interview, you want to be you're on a cell phone, you want to be in a good place where you get good reception. I'm not saying go next to a cell phone tower. I'm just saying you want to be in a good place where you can get good reception. Video conference, and I can tell you that right now, especially within this pandemic, they were telling me, oh yeah, we'll give you a call at this 10 minutes or 5 minutes before the interview. Yeah, they gave me a call, and then when they gave me a call, they gave me the meeting ID and passcode for Zoom. So even if it's a telephone interview, you still want to dress up, fully, with all the way from the your suit or dress, whatever you got on. Plus, you want to have your socks and your shoes and everything on, because you never know what they might do in regards to that interview. You may think it's going to be on a telephone, but it may, they may call you up and give you that passcode and ask you to call them on FaceTime, Skype, or Zoom. All right, next slide, please. And now, since the pandemic and folks are finding that to be a successful tool, even if everything get back to normal, and it may still be one of those things where they will be still conducting interviews over digital media, which they were doing prior to this, but they may continue to do much more. So something to keep in mind. Interview delivery methods, again, a panel or one-on-one. Before, I used to be intimidated by panels, but I found panels after a while to be more, I got more comfortable with panels than I did with one-on-one, because with panels, at least you see a variety of different faces. Every time I see somebody new, I think the most I had was like 5 people. 5 people was the most, but every time I see somebody new, it's like a refreshing me at the top, like you refreshed a web page. It was kind of like that for me when I went to the next one. So, but definitely that panel interview, they may typically ask you 2 or 3 questions each. And they do tend to listen very intently when you're answering those questions. And again, they will be taking those notes. The one-on-one, you could end up doing one of those as well with the one person. So something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Behavioral. So you got those different types of questions when it comes to behavioral and also situational. This is this is one of the reasons I say it's really important to rehearse your answers and you know, some of the things that you may want to talk about, because real quickly and real easily can, you know, some of the wrong things come out, and somebody could end up taking it the wrong way. So you can develop your talking points, and you can be able to, you know, stick with those. So draw from your actual behavior during past experiences, and they'll definitely ask you that. Tell me about a time when, you know, and also situational. If you were in the following situation, what would you do? Indicate of how you will behave in a similar situation. Because I would just go back and think about, okay, if I was hiring this person, what kind of person would I want to work here? And a lot of you may already be hiring managers, or you may be in a position to hire folks. You know, one of the things you can do is draw from your own personal experience or expectation. You know, I know we have to manage our expectations, but I would go into that with that type of mindset. Like, okay, they're here trying to develop the best team possible. So, you know, and you want to be truthful with them and give them the honest answers, but you also want to be targeted with those answers and not just talking a miss. So behavioral and situational. Next slide, please. All right, resume responses based on the information in your resume. Tell me about a job exactly. Getting to know you. What is your greatest strength and why should I hire you? Awesome. All right, so when it comes to this, again, like I was saying before, unless it's just something that's just gonna, you know, knock their socks off, if it's and it's not on the resume, that may be something you want to bring up, and you can say it happened recently or something like that of that effect. It may not be on your resume. I wouldn't say it may not be on my resume, but I would say something to the effect that it was something that I just completed recently. Typically, it's going to need to be something that's on your resume, and those responses are going to need to be based on that. And I think I said that before, but I can't expound on that enough, because that's what they're looking for, and that's what they're looking at. And it's kind of like their proof, you know, when they're or brings their confidence level up in you when they hire you for a particular job and you're able to do that job. I remember the last class I was telling them I got a job as a sexual assault response instructor over at BMT prior to me coming over here. And I think it was GS9. And I had only been there for like 2 days. They told me I had a 30-day train up period. And after 2 days, they said, hey, we're going to need you to work on your own. We know we told you was going to have 30 days to certify. And then, you know, my eyes got kind of big, and everybody on the team, eyes got kind of big, like, oh, he all right. And then the commander said, hey, according to your resume, you said blah, 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 blah. So again, that's their confidence and the commander was confident in me. I was confident in myself. My eyes got big because I'm looking at the other team members who think maybe he not ready yet. So, but that's something to, you know, again, if it's on the resume, it boosts their confidence in your ability to do the job, and yours as well. Getting to know, what is your greatest strength? And I will be ready to answer that question with either one, because sometimes they may ask you what's your greatest strength, and they may want one. On the other hand, they may ask you, give me 3 of your greatest strengths. I think mine was like integrity, resilience. I think I said resilience first. I had an acronym that was actually me, but so I could remember it and I could talk from each one of those. But resilient was definitely the first one, because they also asked me about a time that I had to be resilient. So something to keep in mind when they ask you that question, and always have an upside, because I've talked to a lot of hiring managers and they said, and I asked them, I was like, well, why that person didn't, you know, why these people, why is people not getting hired? And they was like, oh man, they start out, you know, really good. Then they take themselves down to a dark place, but they never come back out of it, you know. And then they say some people start crying in the interview and blah, 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 and stuff like that. So anytime you always want to end on the upside or a high note. And then why should I hire you? That's going to be up to you to answer that. But I will say this, because in the beginning, I remember watching some videos prior to me doing all of this. And I remember the one guy, I really liked his YouTube channel. I can't remember what his YouTube channel was by now, but he was saying in the beginning of the interview, when they say, tell me about a little bit about yourself, or tell me about yourself, you know, that's your time to shine and to not be too boisterous and all that, but to give them information that may not necessarily be in your resume. For example, all of my stuff was in there based on the military and family readiness when I worked at Airman's Week and all that information. But I was also able to tell them my name is Stephen Parchman. I've been working with military families for over 25 years, blah, 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 blah. And I talked for probably about 3 to 5 minutes straight. Now, I'm not saying that that's something that you should do, but I'm saying that that was something that I was able to do. And that was something that definitely always worked for me, because I had a hope when they asked me this, these are the things I'm going to say. Also, they asked me tell me a little bit about yourself. Personally and professionally and personally. I didn't go into detail when they talk about personally about my favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys and this and that and me and my 3 kids and blah, blah, blah. And so when they asked me about something personally, I just said, personally. So we just bought a Rottweiler puppy. We just bought one for my daughter. She really loved dogs. And I said we drove 14 hours trip and we had a great time. We stopped at this place, we did this, blah, blah, blah. And that was it. I just talked a little bit about that, maybe 30 seconds. And that was it when it comes to personal. I didn't go into any more details about anything else because I did not want the objective to become subjective. Even though everything could be subjective, but I just wanted to make sure that I walk a certain type of line. But I already had something prepared in case they ask me something like that. So that's something that I would definitely keep in mind. I'm not sure if my email is on here. I'll put my email on here. Anything that y'all got, or if you got any questions or anything, or if you say, hey, this is my, why should I hire you speech or part or element of my interview. If you send it to me, I can look at it and I can send you something back. So that'll be no problem at all. I'll put my email address out. All right, so next slide, please. Yep, there it is. Focus on what the hiring manager is looking for. Highlight your most important accomplishments. Consider any volunteer-related work, and I would definitely do that. It's just hard to get people, when folks come in for some career counseling or some employment, that's one of the biggest things I tell folks. You may want to go out and volunteer. It's the quickest way to get what? Some experience. So definitely can talk about that as well. But you definitely want to focus on what the hiring manager is looking for. Again, this goes back into the instructions, the regulations, the policies that govern, but also the job announcement and what you're bringing to the table for this particular position. All right, next slide, please. All right, and responding using the STAR model, most definitely, the situation or task, action, and result. So anytime you're giving those answers, this is how you want to give a situation, you want to give that action describing what exactly what you did, and you want to get a result of that outcome. Now, sometimes it may not necessarily go straight down the line in this order, but you definitely want to ensure that you have that result. That was another, when I talked to some hiring managers, that was another element that they said is missing oftentimes is that folks are not given the result. They just, they'll go into the situation, they'll tell about the action, but, we don't know how well you did that job. You did something, but did it really work? Did it help? Did it save money? Did it increase this? And so the result is very important. Next slide, please.
Is that
All
it?
right, yeah, thinking, go back one.
Yeah, when I move it, it just likes to go real quick. So.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we on 15. Is that 15? Yeah. You can go to the next one.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And then this is another one, competency with customer service. I won't read this whole thing, but if we look down at the bottom, it talks about who was involved, what specific action, what was the result. Tell me about a challenging customer service experience. And when it comes to the challenging part, for example, I'll give y'all an example that I had because they asked me, tell me about a time that you failed. I was like, oh yes, I can't wait to answer this question. Now, why was I like that? Because I already had something ready to go. All right, and I knew it was going to be a doozy, that it was going to be something that was going to be good. All right, and so when they asked me that, tell me about a time when you failed. I told them about a time that I had an outreach. I was supposed to go out to, I believe, one of the medical units, and I was supposed to give a briefing or something like that. But when the person came in to tell me about it, I fail to write it down into my calendar and annotate it. So when the time comes, I just completely miss it because I never wrote it down. I still have the paper in one of my outboxes over here. But the thing about it is, yeah, I just straight up, I forgot about it. I didn't tell him that straight up. I just told him, yeah, I completely forgot about it. I really felt bad about it. I said I immediately called the senior master sergeant over there that was in charge of the functions for that day, and I rescheduled with them and told them, it won't happen again, and we're taking the corrective actions to ensure that it don't happen again. So I let him know all that information. But then on the upside, I told him that I started, so immediately now when somebody tell me that, oh, I need you to do this, or I get an email, or if I talk to somebody and we nail down the dates based on what we're going to do, I always put it not only in my calendar on my government computer, because that was another issue, is that, putting stuff in the calendar on the government computer, you put it in there and then it just drop off by itself. Next thing you know, you don't have the appointments in there. But anyway, I told him I used the government computer, and then I also use my calendar on my phone through Google, and for all my appointments, for everything. And I said, and it's also connected not just to my calendar, but also to my wife's phone, to my daughters. I got two daughters that's 12 and 13. It's connected to both of their phones. I said, it's amazing how at night, Sunday night, we're sitting there at home getting ready, thinking about getting ready for the next day. And my wife would tell me, hey, tomorrow you got Air Force Aid and you got this, you got that. And so when I mentioned all of this, I put it in a well-articulated format when I talked to them, but they were blown away and they were impressed by that result. So what I'm getting at is with this whole story is that, yes, it may be something that was challenging, or it may be something that, if it seemed like if it was a failure, but the thing you want to do is keep in mind that you can fail forward. Just have a good upside when it comes to those questions. So yeah, most definitely. Next slide, please. Yep, and here's another one. Action, I convene focus groups with users and designated an IT team member, follow up on specific recommendations. Yep, based on the feedback, I prepared and implemented a plan to improve and expand help desk services. And then if we see in the result, see they got some quantitative data down there, 15% and 20%. So when you're talking, you definitely want to use, if at all, you can use quantitative data. When you give the results, you definitely want to give that quantitative data, because it gives folks a way to gauge, how well you did that job, or how well you overcame that, or how well you improved. Next slide, please. So competency when it comes to teamwork, and we'll see teamwork right there, encourages and facilitates cooperation, fosters commitment and teamwork spirit, works on others to achieve goals. So, all right, most definitely. So again, they're going to maybe asking you the same type of who was involved, specific actions, results, but also collaboratively describe a situational task where you work collaboratively with others to accomplish a goal, and describe the goal, your role on the team, and the result. And one thing you don't want to do is, you want to be humble, but you don't want to be too humble. You want to be able to have a balance in there, because you want to tell your role in the team. But also another thing, folks, some of the feedback I got from some of the hiring managers is that when they ask a teamwork question, instead of folks focusing on what they did, they'll talk more about what somebody else did. And they said it's not somebody else's interview, it's your interview. So we want to know what you did as far as that team goes. So something to keep in mind when it comes to that competency of teamwork. Next slide, please. All right, so another behavior-based response. I volunteered to complete several of their research assignments, and down at the bottom, we'll see they gave the result. I completed the research during work hours, which did not impact my regular. Okay, so in this case, they didn't have any quantitative data, but they did give some good answers, give a good results on that one. Gave good results on that one. The research during work hours, which did not impact my regular work, and saved the organization from paying overtime. Now, unless they got the amount of calculations in overtime, that could be something else. But in this case, this is a really good one as well. Next slide, please. Resilience, yep, they definitely asked the question about that. How did you personally handle this situation and what kept you motivated? Those questions did come up over and over again because they do want to understand, identify how you handle stress and how are you able to overcome. And one of my things I said, that was one of my strengths. And when I got to talk about it, I talked about the ability to grow, adapt, and overcome. So definitely want to keep that in mind and be able to speak from an example of something that's going to require you to be resilient. Let's see. Okay, so how did you personally handle this situation? And they may not even say anything about resilience or being resilient, but you could bring up resilient yourself because that may be something they want to hear too. And maybe something nobody else is talking about. And what kept you motivated? Awesome. Yep, most definitely. Next slide, please. And I'll give y'all a few seconds to look over this one, behavior-based response example. Alrighty then, awesome. And so that second paragraph with that second sentence is, that I asked my supervisor to review the training with me again and go over what the problems were. And so that's that's an excellent point that they made because that may be something else that they're looking for is to be able to identify, do you know when you need help or are you afraid to come to the supervisor? Or something of that effect. So I would definitely keep that in mind. This is a really good response, really good response. Next slide, please. Leadership, and this is another good one. What was on the project? Who were the team members? What actions did you take? And what were the results? So if you're seeking those higher positions, this is something you definitely want to look at. And we look at that competency for leadership, influences, motivates, and challenges others, adapts leadership styles to a variety of situations. So when you write your resume, you want to write it in the context when looking at leadership aspect, you want to write it in that context is what you want to, because that's what they're going to be looking for. By the way, these slides are from the Office of Personnel Management. So this is not me just making up stuff and saying, oh yeah, this sound good to do. This is exactly what we're coming from the federal government, just so you all know. All right, next slide, please. So leadership. So, and I will say this caveat on that, because when it comes to leadership, folks will apply for a leadership position, but they only bring in technical experiences. And they may not necessarily bring in enough, or they bring in just a sliver of leadership and they put a lot of technical experience. But if you're going in for a leadership position, you may want to put in some leadership, write it from that leadership aspect. And then this was another behavior-based response. And I really like how in that action, they said, I demonstrated how the current approach was highly duplicative and inefficient and was hampering progress in advancing its mission and meeting customer needs. And that's not negative at all. Folks can, well, to me, it's not negative at all, but folks can tend to go in a negative direction and go on a tangent and start talking about other people and how they're not doing their jobs and all that. This person is not saying that. Instead, they're just saying that I identified this was the task, this was the action I took, and these were the results. Because you don't want to talk bad about anyone, and you definitely want to stay on a positive kilter. Next slide. Yep, there it is. Avoid the following types of responses: opinions, theoretical, and vague. Again, and I've talked to quite a few hiring managers, GS 14s, 15s, 13s, 12s, and a lot of them, those are some of the biggest issues, is being too vague, not answering and answering a question and talking for like 5 minutes about the question. But out of all, if we was looking for 5 points, that person may have gotten one. Is one of the things that they're saying. So if they are taking tally or taking count, then that person, yeah, that's how those responses are being measured. So something I would definitely keep in mind. And theoretical, unless they're asking about theories, yeah, definitely want to avoid that type. And opinions is a good reason to rehearse before you go into an interview, and question yourself and ask or examine yourself. I'll say that if you are, you use, or if you're too opinionated, or you're giving the pertinent information that's needed. Next slide, please. Yep. So the STAR model. Present examples. Yep. Demonstrate competencies, knowledge, skills, abilities for the job. Again, you should have gone through this process by now if you completed your resume. Quantify your achievements as such. Improve process. Save money. State how much. Again, great slide. Can't harp on that enough when it comes to that information right there. Next slide, please. Situation-based questions present realistic job-related scenarios, situations, or dilemmas requiring candidates to explain how they would likely respond. So, and in some cases, they may ask you a question that you never really thought about, and you may not necessarily have an answer about. But again, one of the things to keep in mind is, again, the opinions, theories, and vagueness. But I would just try to, any elements or any experiences I can think of in regards to that job, I would just keep that in mind. Also, I don't know how many of y'all here at Lackland, but I do have these. I got a lot of books on interviewing, and this book right here has 50 questions to expect during your job interview, and it talks about how to answer those questions. So if you're here, and you want to stop by, I definitely got a lot of books and information that's really pertinent to this, and it will help you out greatly. And just keep in mind, the underlying premise is that people's intentions are closely tied to their actual behavior in similar circumstances. Because if they do hire you and bring you into the team, they want some kind of scope of capability. All right. And again, they could already have something going on in their organization that they're trying to get rid of, and they don't want to hire somebody and bring more of it if it's something they're trying to get rid of. But if it's something they're trying to, oh yeah, that'd be a good person to come in and put in this position, they're able to pivot this and pivot us in this direction, influence, lead others, and apply some change management principles, and blah, 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 blah. So definitely something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Leadership. You're managing a project, success, okay, requires you work together. So they may you may have something along that line. What specific actions would you take? What challenges would you anticipate? And I did have quite a few of these, especially with the job from the Pentagon, because a lot of it was project management. And so one of the things I did look over was continuous process improvement principles, but I also looked at project management principles as well, because in the job announcement, it kept talking about project management. So I did look at some job management, program management principles, and some, I downloaded some PDF files on project management, and I read through all of that information. So I was able to, again, when they bring up something about that, I'm able to speak from that perspective. Also, but first and foremost, I will keep in mind that instruction, regulation, or policy that governs that. So and be able to speak from that as well. I mean, enmesh it, put it all together and speak from that, and it'll help you out greatly as well. Next slide, please. All right, so situation-based response. I'll give y'all 3 seconds to read over that one. So action and anticipated challenges. Yep. Alrighty then. So great. These are great examples as well. And right there at the beginning, I will talk to each individual to ascertain contributions and then anticipated challenges. I expect to learn that some parts of the project are not being worked on. So something to keep in mind, and not just for interviewing, but also in the job that you have now. These are some of the things I will be looking at, or I will be going back and looking at as I make my resume, or as I move forward in life. Like, okay, let me think in terms of actions and anticipated challenges. With anything that you do, this is some of the elements that could be very important when seeking employment and applying for employment. Next slide, please. So questions interviewers can ask specific roles and responsibilities at past or current jobs. And one of the interviewers that I had, they did ask me, in your current position, because, and I bring that up because you may have an experience that you want to talk about 2 jobs ago, but according to your resume, they may look at a specific, or they may look at a specific position that you had, and they may ask you about that position, specific roles and responsibility in that position. So, I mean, I had some outstanding one for the NCO Academy that I had on there, but the question they asked me, and that's the one I had in mind on one of the interviews, but then they said, we want to, in your current position. And the person, when he said that, he actually came closer to the camera and said, in your current position. So something to definitely keep in mind. Likes and dislikes pertaining to your work. Again, if you do have dislikes, I would definitely have a up with that one. Job knowledge and job related factors such as education, experiences, training, skills, and education. Let me see, when it comes to the likes, dislikes pertaining to your jobs, yeah, definitely want to have an upside to that. But also another aspect of that when it comes to dislikes, not just having an upside, but for me, like one of the things I talked about was I'm always seeking improvement, and I'm always examining myself, my motives, my actions, my intentions, yada yada yada. And those are some of the things that I was saying before I gave my dislikes, and especially one of the questions I was asked, like, what is one of what did he ask me? It was along the lines of what's one of your weaknesses in the well, give me your greatest weakness in the job in your current position. And I told him my greatest weakness in my current position is was and can still be where to draw the line. I said, because we got folks that come in for financial counseling or employment or TAP, transition assistance, and or even employment, and somebody come in and they want me to write their whole resume. They got to take, it come a point in time where I learned that I have to draw the line, or I can become stressed and overwhelmed. And it's not because the position is causing me to be overwhelmed by how I'm managing my relationships with others and blah, blah, blah. And so I went into detail and I talked about that, and, they were shaking their head like, oh, wow, yeah, that's it. So again, something on the upside, I did end on the upside, and I talked about some from that, like, it was amazing how I had a A1C airman that came in and talked to me about PFR. And next thing and I wanted to do so much for him because, him and his wife and his little daughter, they came in, and, I was treating them like they're my own family. And, I really wanted to do it, but I had to recognize that it was some things that he's going to have to do on his own, and that I can't do everything for him. And so I said, but the greatest satisfaction was about a month later when he sent me pictures showing me, because we was working on his credit report, but he showed me pictures that they already poured the foundation to his house, the walls coming up. So I gave him an example of that, and the smile came on their face, and I gave him an example of something else, another case that I had, and the smile came on their face about that. So knowing where to draw the line, and that was some of the examples that I gave. So just giving y'all some perspective when it comes to this, and not just looking at the slides, but definitely something I would keep in mind. Next slide, please. We are almost done. Interview scheduling. Her agency may telephone or email to schedule an interview. Very important to have accurate contact information on your resume. I can tell you this, on one of the jobs I applied for, I have no idea how this happened in Yahoo, but it was an extra letter in my email address within the Yahoo profile. Parchman, it was, instead of having Parchman, Parchman, it had Parchlman. I don't know how the L got in there. And the thing about it is, when I would get emails from people, but when I replied back to them, it did something else with the reply. And so I actually, because the lady, she called me up from Alaska, and she said, hey, and I answered the phone. I said, man, Alaska calling me? Oh yeah, I applied for a job in Alaska. And so she called me up and she said, Mr. Parchman, we had an interview scheduled for yesterday with you, but you didn't show up. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't see it in my email, or was it a phone call? She said, no, we sent you an email. And so I went back into my email. I said, well, sorry, my apologies, ma'am, blah, blah, blah. Talked to her about that. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's all done. And she said, well, we would like to reschedule you for another interview. I was like, oh my goodness, that's like never happening to anybody. You know, I'm not saying it will never happen, but I'm just thinking in my mind, I was so overjoyed. But anyway, I went back in and that's what I found out. So you definitely want to make sure that contact information is up to date. If your phone number changed, you definitely want to make sure that the phone number changed. Or if something is going to happen with your email or your phone number, after they sent you an email, you may want to reply back and get them updated information, because it could be something that's going to be different than on your resume. Obtain information from the scheduler, point of contact information, building access requirements, identification, if needed. If you are actually going into a building, you definitely want to do that and get that information as well. Next slide, please. But a lot of the folks that I got that emailed me, I mean, they was the friendliest people. I mean, I didn't have any negative encounters with anybody. If I asked a question through email, they always got back with me quickly, unless, you know, the time difference was something else, or you know, if the time difference was way off or something. And so, you know, and then they would get back with me once they came in. But I mean, it was great. So if they do send you an email, you know, if you have any concerns, I would say be professional and, you know, ask whatever questions you may need, because the questions that you ask may be the questions that may be the difference between you obtaining the position or not. All right, so inquire about the interview process. You can ask if it's going to be a panel, if it's going to be one-on-one, or length of the interview. But I will say this, for me, in my situation, in my case, every one of them that I had was a panel, and they always told me, it was going to be a panel interview, and they told me how much time, what time it was going to start, and the length of the interview. They always told me that too, whether it was 30 minutes or 1 hour. And I will say this, because sometimes they'll give you the 30 minutes spot. Like one of the interviews I had was a 30-minute time period. And I would just say, watch how fast because for me, I was on the computer, and down at the bottom of the right of the screen, I can see the time. I'm like, oh man, I got 30 minutes, or I got 15 minutes left, or I got 7 minutes left, and I still got 2 people to go. And so, but the thing about it is, you know, you don't want to start speeding up your your speech, rate of speech, just based on that. You know, you want to get the information out there, and you want to be thorough in the process. But, you know, especially if you're talking about the points that they're asking about, the talking points, what the elements or the points that they're looking for, then, you know, you don't have anything to worry about. But if we start talking about, you know, football, basketball, going out to do the garden or the shopping mall, and, you know, we go off on a tangent then and waste a lot of time, then that may be something else. That may be something else. So if you need any other accommodation, notify a person who contacts you and provide the details if there's any other accommodations that's going to be needed outside of, you know, something that would be not needed. Next slide, please. Yep, there it is. So learn about the hiring organization, search their website, research media. And that was another thing I did, especially with the Air Force resilience program through the Pentagon. I went on their website. I looked at their videos. I looked at their brochures, anything that they had for the resilience. I think it was Alpha 1 Zulu, that directorate. I looked it up, and I looked at the information. Now, I didn't go on nobody's Facebook page. I didn't go on nobody's LinkedIn website, because I'm telling you, you'll be surprised at some of the things some people do. You know, I will let that just be a surprise, and I will stick with, you know, the agency's website and the research media. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying that Okay. All right. I'll leave it right there. So, so know the job, review the job opportunity announcement, the requirements, including the competencies, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and major duties and responsibilities. Again, once you take that information in, digest it, be able to rehearse, be able to speak freely your experience based on the job announcement, then you should have no problem at all. Should have no problem at all. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yep, review your resume, think about your accomplishments, rehearse with someone who is an experienced interviewer. So again, like I said, if y'all at a different base, the Airmen and Family Readiness Center or Military and Family Readiness Center should have employment team there, and they should be able to conduct mock interviews with you all as well if you don't have anyone else to conduct mock interviews with. But definitely want to review that resume, make sure, whatever dollar amounts of use, say, for example, you got $60,000 in this, but then in the interview, you say $1 million, totaling $1 million, blah, blah, blah. You want to make sure everything is matching up. All right. So definitely want to do that. That's why they say think about accomplishments, because they be listening to everything that you're saying within that. I mean, I didn't have one interview where even the lady that was on the phone, I mean, she listened to everything. She could recall something I said 7 minutes ago or 8 minutes ago. I'm talking about in detail. So something to definitely keep in mind. Think about those accomplishments. Let it flow freely. Next slide, please. Arrive early, dress appropriately the day of the interview, act professionally, most definitely. Bring several copies of resume and consider not wearing heavy perfumes or colognes. Most definitely, yep, on that one. If you are going into the interview. Act professional, yep. And so some of those, like, I think one of the interviews I had, they was doing a lot of laughing and a lot of, some other things, joking. I don't know if they was trying to see if I was just going to sit there at the position of attention or something and don't say hardly, and keep a straight face. But, to see if you're going to be the type of person, especially if the one of the ladies that asked me a question for personal work life, because in personal work life, we do a whole gambit of modalities for units or a whole lot of different types of training. And so if they was thinking about bringing me in and put me on personal, oh, wow, we want to bring that person in, but they don't seem like they too rigid or they too. So, some of the things that in that case, I think somebody asked me, would you rather Zoom or would you rather conduct trainings in person? And that was one of the questions they asked me for personal work life. And I said, oh, most definitely like to, be in person for this reason, that reason, blah, blah, blah. And then I came a little bit close to the camera and I said, because sometimes, people, they may not tell you stuff over Zoom, but they'll tell you stuff in person, personal stuff that they really need, and then I leaned back and so they, they was laughing about that and they thought it was funny. But I knew my audience and I kept it professional. But I know as well that that's something in this realm or in this profession that they need to know and hear, that you're going to be able to be there. Also, another question they asked me was, would you rather be perfect and late to the event, or would you rather be on time and mediocre? And she asked me that question, and I said, and I was like, oh my goodness, is this? And then I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, did she just ask me that question? And while I'm saying that in my mind, she came close to the screen and she said, and you have to select one. And I was like, Something in the back of my mind said, okay, you already got a job. You need to be honest. So I was honest. I said, ma'am, to be honest with you, neither one of those fit who I am as a person. I said, because to me, excellence, to be perfect, the pursuit of excellence is perfection for me. And then I said, if I'm late, and nobody's perfect, but I said, if I'm late, then there goes my credibility when I go in, unless it's something that's on the news and they see that I could not help but coming in, so I explained that to her in a little bit of detail. But then I said, on the other side, flip side of the coin, I said, I've worked suicide prevention. I've been a master resilience trainer. And I've also been a sexual assault response coordinator while I was in the Army for 7 years. I said, so mediocrity and on time they cancel each other out. Neither one of them is gonna, because, there may be somebody in the audience that day for blah, 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 this, that, or whatever. I said, but if I'm mediocre with the facilitation or with a briefing or the group discussions or something, I said, I may miss somebody and something bad may happen to somebody. So therefore that neither fits me as well. And so I gave her just a little bit of a spiel at the end after explaining both of them. And then she sat back and she had this big smile on her face and she started shaking her head just like this, like, yes, that's what I needed to hear. So again, you got to know yourself and then understand the psychology behind the questions, a little bit of the psychology behind the questions based on what they're trying to identify. Because if I say perfect and late, then that may tell a lot about my personality. But if I say mediocre, yeah, we get it. As long as we show up and do it, that's all that matters. All right, and that could be somebody that they definitely don't want, because that may be somebody who they're replacing right now. So something to keep in mind. I'm just giving y'all a few examples when it comes to acting professionally, because I did maintain my professionalism, but I also was being honest with them. Next slide, please. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So listen carefully. Be honest. And when they say listen carefully, that comes into play, especially when you don't want to try to anticipate the question, because that way you may end up asking them to repeat the question again. Because as soon as they tell me about a time, and then you start thinking, tell me about a time when I was nice to an employee or something like that, for example. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're listening to the whole question. And then when you get ready to respond, again, you want to make sure that you respond to that question with the right answer. Be honest. Yep. Ask for clarity if needed, because I did have to do that on a few times, because on some questions, I could go in this direction or I can go in that direction. But I need to know how I need to be specific when I answer this question. So I did ask for clarity. Project your voice. Yep, most definitely. Instead of talking like this, and maybe I'll get the job. And and I'm not saying talk too loud, because when I was in the Army, we always had to talk loud about everything. So I have to watch my tone and my and stuff. So definitely, again, when you start rehearsing and going through what you're going to be saying within the interview, if certain questions are asked, then you're able to kind of I will be mindful of my how I project my voice out. All right, and then be aware of your nonverbal communication. Most definitely, because that was one of the things somebody brought this up in one of the hiring managers brought this up when I was talking to him, because he was telling me about how the person was doing their hands, and they even noticed a little bitty tag that was on one of the sleeves of somebody's suit and stuff. So anything that's nonverbal, you definitely want to be cognizant of, even the verbals, because you could say "and" too much, or it may be a word that's somebody just using over and over and over again. And especially if it's a job that requires you to give briefings, then that may be something else that they may be looking at as well. So definitely want to, take those into consideration. Next slide, please. Questions to ask hiring manager. Yep. These are great questions to ask the hiring manager. What is the typical day like? What projects or assignments would be responsible? Would I be responsible? What is the career path? What is your management styles? What do you expect to make a decision? When do you expect to make a decision? Now, one of the questions that I ask at the end of every single interview, and this question asks typically almost every question that they have. And one thing I found out too, that I'll say about a 90% rate, this question connects you with that hiring manager. It's like it connects both of you. And that question was, what does your ideal candidate look like? And when you ask, oh my goodness, when I asked, matter of fact, in one of the interviews, I asked that, and the lady was like, and the hiring manager was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, so blah, 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 and then she said, oh, wow, that's a good question. And so, she just jumped up and she just came to life, animated, and she started telling me blah, 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 all this stuff. Now, here's the thing about it. When you ask that question, what does your ideal candidate look like? That's one of the ways to know how well you did in that interview. All right, one of the last interview, especially this position I got currently that I was able to get a promotion. That was one of the things they said, like you said about this, like you said about that. You mentioned this. This is another. You mentioned that. Okay. Blah 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 blah. Like you said on this. Blah 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 blah. You gave this answer, and this is one of the things. And so this was like grade my test questions at the end was what that was like. And another aspect, because it was it was 2 jobs I applied for in Alaska, and so when I interviewed for the first one, the lady at the end, she said, yeah, I want, and then she explained the whole position. She explained a lot of the position, but then she said, also, I want somebody who don't mind the cold. I want somebody who don't mind the day and night differential. She said, they don't mind the snow, and they don't, and she just went on a tangent about all of these things that, she have a hard time with people when they come in. And so guess what I did? The next interview I had for Alaska, at the end, in the beginning, when I, no, at the end, when they asked me, do you have anything else for us? After I asked that question, after I asked them about the ideal candidate, they asked me, do you have anything else? And then I was like, yes, ma'am, I don't mind the snow. I don't mind the cold. I don't mind this. I don't mind that, blah, 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 blah. So, and I wasn't saying that just to get the job. I said that because I meant it. So definitely they can give you other ideas as to what to say in the next interview. And again, it's like your report card at the end of the interview. What does your ideal candidate look like? And if you get the position, you know what the expectation is. I mean, they told you all this stuff, and a lot of times they literally went down the PD almost. I mean, they didn't have the PD in front of them, that tell you about what the job, about your job, what your job is about. They typically went down the list and gave me some ideas. So, and it also helped me to write future resumes, any jobs I applied for, to make some changes on that. And so, yeah, it was awesome. But that's one of the things, one of the questions that's not on here that I would definitely add. And me personally, if I was you all, that would be one of the first questions I asked. And then, if you want to follow up with anything else, then I will follow up, because typically they're going to ask you, is there anything else, or do you have any more questions after that? And then you can ask more questions. I mean, it's up to you all, but I'm going to tell you, that question, it works wonders. You'll be surprised. And even some of the folks are amazed, because a lot of times folks will say at the end, yeah, when can I expect to hear back from you, or something like that? That's what folks may be asking. But when I ask, in the interviews, when I asked about that ideal candidate, a lot of times the hiring managers were shocked that I asked that. They wasn't prepared for it. They wasn't prepared for that question. So something to keep in mind when it comes to asking questions to the hiring manager. Next slide, please. Tips, yep. Be truthful, keep responses to questions job related. Yep, most definitely be clear and concise. And this is why it's good to rehearse, talk it over to yourself, or get somebody to, you come in and you talk to somebody to get them to conduct a mock interview with you, and state responses positively. And that's one of the things that I can't harp on that enough. I'm always, I think my book is under here. I'm always learning something. This is a book I put on my, here on my work area, because every day I come in and I read a page before I start the day. I come in a little bit early, read a page out of this book, because I'm always looking for ways to stay positive, stay high energy, stay focused. So when anybody come in here to for an appointment, or they come in for Air Force Aid, or they come in for something that we do here that I'm able to assist them with, they can positive energy, stay in a positive direction. Even in my, I don't know if y'all can see even in my office, I got my little thing over there with the cave, and I keep it positive. Even in my over here on this wall, I put my little mountain up and all that stuff. But everything I do, I try to stay positive, and that was one of the biggest things that really helped me get through those interviews last year. And even now, I mean this year too. Even now, I still had. I think Osan sent me the manager there sent me a email asking me if I still wanted the position. So, and I had a couple other, one in Turkey, one in, what's that other place? In Anacostia, Bowling. I think it's in DC. That was another place. So the jobs are out there. The interview process can be very rewarding. After the interviews, I felt really energized, and I was like, oh man, I wish I could do another one. I believe it or not, because I came in, I was prepared. Because you think about over the course of your whole life, and you go to work every day, and you find purpose, you find meaning, and then in the interview, it's kind of like being able to tell people about the awesome purpose and meaning for life, and how you're making a difference, in the world. You may not necessarily see the effects of it all, but everything that we do, to some extent, it always matters to some extent. All right, next slide, please. All right, listen, Kurt, we talked about that. Provide responses showing how you contribute. Yep, we talked about that. Organization's mission and goals, and avoid negative comments about previous employers or coworkers. Yep, most definitely want to do that. And one of the questions I did have was talking about how you could have a negative coworker or something like that, or if they came in this day and they was pessimistic, what did you do, or something like that. And it was an easy question for me to answer, because again, I always try to stay positive, and I had to learn that while I was in the Army. Being a CAD scout and infantry and going on all the deployments, you got to hunt the good stuff. Always hunt the good stuff, and that's one of the tenets that I still live by to this day. So I don't look at anything. I always try to see the best in people. I always see the person of performance and the person of potential. Yeah, this person is performing this act right now, but I know they can be better, and I balance the two with wisdom. So that's something that I try to do. And so I say this because when I speak and I do my interviews, it shows up in my interview. It showed up in my interviews, and I was shocked at it too. So next slide, please. Other considerations, have those references ready. You also want to let those supervisors know that whoever reference, you want to let them know that you're using them as a reference, and you want to give them a copy of your resume as well. And I will say this, yeah, let folks know because what kind of positions that you apply for, because I had somebody put me down as a reference before, and I think I talked about everything. Out of 100%, I probably talked 10% about the job and like 90% about other stuff. The person didn't get the job either. So, he didn't let me know. I'm like, okay, they call, they want to know what kind of person he is. Okay, all right, yada, yada, yada. So, but yeah, so definitely want to let them know what kind of position you're going to be applying for so that they know to speak to that position. Yep, professional, include name, title, email addresses, telephone number. Leave on a high note and ask for the job. Yep, if you have a portfolio, yep, you do have anything, you're able to put samples of your work. If they ask for that, then that is a good thing that you're able to do as well. Next slide, please. After the interview, write notes. After you leave, write notes on the interview. This is something that I always did as well. And I will say this: if you're doing a Zoom call or you're doing any kind of digital, you want to make sure you're going to have good internet connectivity. You also, if you're at home, you definitely, like for me, I always have my wife ask her to go outside with the dogs in the backyard or take them for a walk while I'm doing the interview, because yeah, my dogs, they might bark sometimes for no reason, or they might go and start playing with each other and they barking all over the place. But I definitely want to have that quiet room. What I did, I got a place in my study room where it was nothing. I could just take the portrait, the big picture I got in there off the wall, and it's going to be a white wall behind me. And I always had a place set up just for the interview when being interviewed. I always had that one place, and I always go back to the same place. One is good internet connectivity. Two, I'm comfortable in that place. Three, I don't have to worry about moving this, moving that. Did I take this down? Did I take that down? So it works out good. So you just want to have a good overall good place. Send a thank you email. Definitely want to do that. Stay positive. You'd be surprised at how that energy can flow. Positive energy can flow. And connect you to that reality that you would like to manifest. Follow up if you did not hear anything back on that position. Next slide. And I think this is about, yep. So, and this is, again, one of the things from OPM, where developing strong leaders by improving interview skills. And so it may not just be for folks who are actually going into coming into federal service to work, but also folks who are already within federal service. Because I'm gonna tell you something, after going through all those interviews, I am not the same person today that I was before I started. And nobody had to tell me to go do those interviews. I was primarily doing them so because I knew that one of the things is when I facilitate or brief a class like this on information, I want to know what I'm talking about. I don't want to give people stuff secondhand, or I'm looking at the slides and I'm taking a guess, or I read something in the book and now I'm telling you about, hey, this is what I read in the book and blah, 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 because everything can be subjective. So I need to go out and get some subjective experience. And so as I go through this and then I go back and I correct my resume and I make new and I apply for more jobs or new jobs, I'm gonna tell you, it's some stuff that just change on the inside of me, because as I start to know different people or different requirements or different experiences that folks were looking for, and then another one was the action, but also what issues that you plan on running into. I also became more cognizant of how I treat other people or how I deal with things in the workplace. Also, how did I improve something or identify something that needs to be created? Because once you get up to like GS12, GS13, some GS11, in some cases, that may be some of the places that you need to be, is creating things or developing things instead of maintaining them. So it does change you a great deal by, when you get those interview skills, it's like it becomes a part of you, like it becomes some superpowers or something like that. Because those attributes and those values and those beliefs that you gain through the whole process, it actually becomes a part of who you are, and it shows up in your work as well. All righty then, so service, a modern workforce will improve customer service for the 21st century by facilitating faster, more convenient, and more cost-effective customer experiences. So they're looking, when it comes to that service, they're looking to get to hire the best of the best out of all the applicants that applied. And I can tell you right now, for the job that I was able to get promoted in, there were 45 referrals. 45 referrals. And out of 45 referrals, 5 of those folks had PhDs, but this job. So if it was 45 referrals, I mean, you got it. And so I had a double take, if you will, two different things working for me at a minimum. One, I applied for the job, and two, they're already gauging, knowing my work ethic and my work experience as well. Whereas all the other folks that may have gotten, I'll say like 30 or 40 of those, they don't know. All they see is what's on paper. So they know my work ethic, my work experience, now, and I'm also applying. So you can look at it as a double negative, or you can look at it as a double positive. Me, I looked at it as a double positive because I know, I do the best that I can at everything. And then once I go to a certain level, then I go and I do something else to improve that. Because I did conduct some interviews prior to coming into federal service when I worked at some civilian places. But none of those civilian places was as rigorous as coming into the federal government to obtain employment. So therefore, nobody had to tell me, hey, you need to get some experience in interview skills and resume and applying for jobs in order to be able to facilitate these kind of instructions or briefings. So that's one of the things that I did. And yeah, it was stressful. Some of the jobs, oh my goodness, I really wanted to take, because some of them was like GS12 and higher than what I already got. But all in all, it was to get me to where I am here, and end up getting the promotion, and I get to stay here in San Antonio. So I'll put my email address there, and if you got any questions or you want me to look at something or anything, you can just send me an email direct. And just keep in mind, if you got a different base, there are other employment. Military and Family Readiness Center or Ameren and Family Readiness Centers with the same, we all do the same thing.
So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, thank you, Mr. Parchman. Appreciate your time in providing us this insight as far as some great information, and that'll help us as far as career opportunities within the federal government. Hopefully everybody online is able to take advantage. We know it's a lot of information, which is why we broke this up over 2 days or 2 different sessions. Each of them went an hour plus, but we definitely feel it was viable information that can help folks as far as their career paths and opportunities and things of that nature. So we will be working to get this posted on either our SharePoint or either on the Facebook page if it's matter to anyone wants to reference this in the future. Sergeant Glass will take care of that. And again, please take the time to fill out that survey. We just want to make sure that we're meeting the mark as far as your needs, things that benefit you, things that benefit your family, and so that we can keep moving the right way to support Team Air Force IMSC. So again, if there's not any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And again, thank you. Appreciate you taking advantage and participating in this event. And we just want you all to take care, have a great day, stay safe, and we'll be in touch.